Hey guys, welcome back to Community Starcraft 2. I'm your host Magnet, and as you can see on the screen, today is TvZ day. It's like a workout where you have to do all sorts of different workouts to stay in shape, so we will get you guys ready to bust down some Zergs and wreck them hard and whatever else you want to say about that. We'll be covering quite a wide array of TvZ strategies, and I've watched a ton of different replays so I could get a good variety this time. It was kind of hard to find good games that were a little varied up between each of them because standard is really overly standard in this matchup. So I hope you guys like what I found. Let's just go ahead and jump into the game without wasting any more time, and we'll get going. First game we're going to watch is between a player named Complain, which is a very strange ID, against this barcode Zerg. It's just annoying that you don't know who it is, but either way, we'll take a look at the games and I'll explain what these guys do, and hopefully you can integrate some of what they do into your own games. So what this Terran's going to do is 12 barracks, obviously very normal. 12 gas right after that really signals a Reaper opening, so he's going to open Reapers. We'll just times 8 it up until that point, since we know what's going to happen. And Reaper coming up, of course, always get your orbital right after you have your barracks done. And he opted not to SCV scout. We'll talk about an option that you can play a little bit later regards to what an SCV scout can mean for your build. This one, he's just going to kind of do it, and nothing else really matters. But again, even on this 4-player map, SCV scouting is almost just as fast as Reaper scouting a lot of the time. The only thing you'll assure with an SCV scout is just you'll get there a lot faster and get information you might want to know. So Reaper's heading out here trying to get some information. Command center behind it. I think we talked about this at length in the TvZ video. If we didn't, this is super standard, and if you watch pretty much any pro game, you're going to see builds like this. So he's just opening with 2 Reapers. First Reaper is going to come in here, try to get a drone or 2, and doesn't quite get the 1. The only goal here with these openers is to continually apply pressure to the Zerg so they can't comfortably expand. And that's what we're going to see. Almost every single one of these builds, or at least every single one of these TvZ openers nowadays, opens with the Reaper into Reactor Hellion, and they're just going to combine the forces and try to deny creep and deny a third base as long as you possibly can. So you can run this in your own games. Obviously, don't lose the Reapers. Maybe a sequel song to Don't Fear the Reaper, but the whole point here is that your composition continues to stack because you don't lose these units and you just continually apply this pressure. So be careful with those. Don't throw them away. He's going to get his Hellion started here in just a second. There we go. And he's going to unite up with these Reapers. Now there is quite a few branches you can play off of this opener. The one is just going with Reaper and maybe 4 to 6 Hellions, doing some pretty light containment type of pressure. One mistake I don't like to see Terrans make here is that the point of these Reapers is to deny creep and deny a third. You might as well just sit a Reaper there and stop him from putting it down. So just make sure you have those in position. There's not much of a reason to have these out in the middle of the map. Maybe even just keep 1 Reaper here and send 1 Reaper into scout to check for all-ins and stuff like that. And that's kind of the secondary point of this opener, but just stop the third from going down. There's no reason to let them have it for free. And once they get the hatchery started, if they get a lot of progress on it, you're never going to cancel it with Reapers and Hellions anyway, so just be mindful of that with this opener. Reapers come back in here, trying to see what they can get. Kind of messed up there because he got his Reapers trapped. Now all of a sudden the Hellion combination with the Reapers is going to be a lot weaker, and that might prompt him to just stop building Hellions. Obviously there's going to be no Banshee follow-up to this, but Cloak Banshee follow-up with this is actually pretty powerful. If you can continually put damage on 1 or 2 of the Queens and then kill them with your Banshee. I should actually say the other side of this matchup. The other side of this matchup is that Zerg wants to get their third up as soon as possible, and they want to get creep down there so that they can connect their bases and defend as well as possible with Queens, or they'll open with Roach. Don't get too discouraged if you get shut down by Roach, because that means they had to invest a lot just into taking their third. But again, try to prevent these creep tumors from going up as much as possible. That way, the Zerg is a lot more frustrated just getting their third, and is going to have a lot harder time dealing with counterattacks and run-bys if they have to put their Queens off creep. So in this game, the Zerg is not really taking this Hellion pressure too seriously, so that's a good choice from them. They're going to send some units up here, and as long as you wall in with these buildings right here, and be prepared to repair your bunker, you should be fine. And again, if you keep your Reaper alive and send it in here every once in a while, you should be able to scout for all-ins like Reapers or Banelings or something like that. But the Spire transition right afterwards is really normal. Kind of getting a little greedy there, trying to land a third. There's nothing back home to stop this, so send Hellions back. And at this point, both players can be pretty much on 3 bases. And this Terran is going to transition into Marines, and he's going to supplement his Marines with a little bit of interesting stuff that we've seen here and there nowadays. If this is the game I'm thinking of, I looked at a lot. But I'm pretty sure this is the game where he supplements them with a lot of Hellbats and a lot of Thors. And by a lot, I mean just a handful, just enough to matter. So we'll see his build develop here, and I'm sorry there's not a lot going on because both of these players did open up super greedy in a sense. So basically by this stage of the game, you're going to want to start planning your next attack, and it's usually going to revolve around when your first 2 medevacs come out. So the medevacs are on the way, and you want to plan it around that so you can get your Marines in position. You'll have stim, you might have 1-1, which he does as of, what, just a second. Yeah, literally just a second, so he's got it now. But then you plan your first attack around your first 2 medevacs. And you attack on their creep, just to maybe try and deny some creep once again, but also see if you can kill drones, see if you can kill banelings, see whatever else you can kill. And if you get in too much trouble, you always can just lift up in the medevac and save your Marines. So basically when your first 2 medevacs come out, that's going to be almost always the time where it's going to prompt you to push and just see what you can get. And of course, when running basically Marine-centric strategies, you're going to be forced a lot into controlling your Marines well to get the money's worth out of them. So the problem that I have with what the Terran's doing right now is his upgrades are a little slow. If you look at the Zergs, they're actually ahead by just a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm just like looking at nothing while I'm explaining this. So here we go. This is why you want to have your medevacs out, because if you get too overwhelmed or if you don't split your Marines properly, then you can just lift up into medevacs. But the whole point to any time you're pushing Zerg is the longer you're on their creep, the better your attack is going to be going. So just see how much you can get, keep attacking for as long as possible, and if you run your creep on their creep to the point where they have to re-engage with the second round of banelings, that's basically perfect. So here comes the next attack. Again, split your Marines against the banelings the best you possibly can. If you can ever get Marines hitting the Mutalisks, you'll be in really good shape. And eventually this is going to get cleaned up, and like I was saying before, if you get in trouble, just put your Marines in your medevacs and boost home. So it shouldn't be too much trouble. But again, the upgrades are a little slow for this Terran. And I think soon enough we should start seeing the rest of those units being mixed in. Yeah, here we go. The Thors are starting to get mixed in, the Hellbats are starting to get mixed in. And this is an alternative to running Marine Mine, or maybe just Marine Marauder straight up. We'll see that in another game, but this is kind of an interesting little flavor that I'm seeing a little more from Terrans nowadays. It seems to be working out for him pretty well. I would say ever since Fantasy really popularized it in Pro League, we're starting to see this a lot more. But yeah, so you'll see why people have started doing this more often than not. Another big point of interest is that multi-prong drops are going to be a big deal in this matchup. And moving his army around is going to be a big deal. I'm sorry, I kind of missed this drop. But there was a little bit of a Marine drop started over here. He just picked it back up as soon as the Zerg reported to it. But the whole idea with these multi-prong drops, man, I choose really hard words to say. But the whole idea is to try and move the army around and get to a point where you can get a drop-off that's being unchecked because his army is distracted somewhere else. So we'll see that a lot more in this second game, but just kind of wanted to introduce that concept. So we're just seeing a lot more build up here. Again, the drop is coming down. I think it was spotted by something over here, and that's why he's just dropping off. But again, another prong. That medevac from before is dropped back off, and you can cancel the space. So most of the time in this matchup as Terran, you're going to either win with one huge push, or you're going to win by just wearing them out economically. And we'll see different variations of that throughout the course of this video. Like I've been saying, I think this is like the 4th or 5th time now. Trust me, it will be soon. So okay, we're starting to see the first move out with a Thor, some Hellbats, and some Marines. Now this is going to be pretty hard to control, and I think the idea here is that if you can control this well, this is going to be better than standard like Marine Mine, because it's a lot harder for Zerg to control against it if you do it properly. So what we're going to see is the Terran's walking up on creep. He's trying to deny as much creep as possible, so Zerg has as little information and mobility as possible. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to use these units as effectively as possible. So what he's trying to do with his Marines is he's trying to put a little group up front, pull the mutas back, and then attract them into this Thor shot so he can put some damage on them. So if your Thors are hitting Mutalisks, and if your Hellbats are standing in the front and dealing damage to the Zerglings and Banelings that roll in, then your Marines will be pretty much undamaged throughout the fight. One more thing I just got to say really fast is that make sure you're trying to hit your timings along with your upgrades finishing up. So if your upgrades are maybe 2/3 of the way done or 3/4 of the way done, that should probably prompt you to push out. And I know that's something that's a little hard to understand in this matchups. So the one Thor just nails a bunch of Mutalisks. More importantly, I think he killed a couple there, so all of a sudden the next time he decides to attack, he didn't spend any mine hits. He didn't need to rely on anything like tanks or anything like that. The Thor is still doing its job. And here we go, the Hellions now have Blue Flame. And you can see, look at how many Zerglings are going to die just to this one Hellbat. Only because they all just decided to surround him right there, because the AI will automatically go after whatever's the closest target. So he's getting a whole bunch of free damage on these Zerglings just for one Hellbat. If he was even good enough, he could actually just pick this up and not even lose it and still kill all these Zerglings. But this is the idea behind this push. So the control here is that you want to put your Hellbats up front, and again you can just control and click to select a whole group of units. Put your Hellbats up front, kind of spread them out a little bit so they don't die immediately to Banelings. Spread your Marines out and try to target your Thor on the clumps of Mutas. So you can see, look how clumped up these Mutas are, and if this Thor were to hit in the center of that Muta ball, I mean, he could deal just tons and tons of damage all with one shot. So I'll slow this battle down so you can see how it develops. So everything comes crashing in. The Thor is unfortunately not targeting like it's supposed to, but again, this is purely reliant on control, and it's hard to get all this thing going at the same time. But still, the Mutas had to take a lot of time killing the Thors there. Now the Marines against Mutas is exactly what you want, and the trades he's getting are just unbelievable because of the way that he was able to break that battle down. You could see that the Banelings mostly blew up on Thor and the Hellbats throughout that, so all of a sudden this push is basically just ending the game because he was able to control that unit composition so well. With the Medivacs, I mean, you do want more Medivacs in this. It's unfortunately only has one, but with the Medivacs here and with Stim and decent upgrades, the Mutalisks will never be able to stop this, and that should just pretty much end the game. As you can see on the game timer, this does end in about 10 seconds. So I kind of just wanted to show a basic opener with the Hellions and the Reapers, and I wanted to also show the fact that different strategies can work out if you have Marines as the center of your strategy. For the longest time throughout Heart of the Swarm, Marine Mine has been really popular, and Marine Marauder, even with still mines mixed in there, has been really popular. But ever since Fantasy brought out these really weird kind of mech bio combinations, people have realized that he was onto something and have started to mix in Thors and Hellbats and sometimes even tanks into these Marine compositions, and they work out really well if you can control properly. So this game, we're going to see something a little different. This game is going to be another Marine-centric strategy, so again, you do need to be able to control well. But this is going to be more of the standard, older style of Heart of the Swarm, back with the mines being mixed in with Marines. And this isn't going to be the win condition of, one big push ends the game like we saw last time. This is going to be the win condition of just completely tearing your opponent apart with multi-prong drops throughout the game. So I realize I'd usually like to reveal as the game is going on, but I feel like we should explain all that just before the replay starts, especially since there's nothing to really talk about right now. I mean, this is just really... I don't know how else you're going to hype up a Reaper jumping around the map, but it's basically what you're going to see in this game. And he decided to SCV Scout here, and this is what I really like. So SCV Scout comes in here, and it's obviously a lot earlier than the Reaper would have gotten there. What he saw was no gas, and a hatchery up. Obviously, almost every Zerg is going to hatch first, but no gas basically means that the Zerg is not going to have Zergling speed for a long time. They won't be able to all in for anything for a really long time. So you know what the right response is for that? It's going to be a third command center, and I think we should see that come down in this replay, unless I'm just completely wrong. But even if we don't see it, that should be your read. If you SCV Scout with your Reaper opener, and you see no gas in the main for the Zerg, just take a third command center. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. And I think that's what he's going to do, considering how much money he has, so I think I'm right. At least as far as what the replay does. So, again, just don't lose your Reapers. I'll refrain from singing, but that's the whole theme here. Just try to keep them alive and try to get as much scouting information as possible. If you can kill drones or lings or whatever, then that's going to be a big plus. And again, going to transition into the Hellion, follow-up right after. And there's that third command center. He's just saying, whatever, it's going to be going right on my wall. I know that you're not going to all-in me because you're not mining gas, so whatever, I'll just take the third command center. Again, being annoying with these Reapers, just try not to lose them as much as you can. You're usually not going to kill any queens with these Reapers, but the whole idea is just to force them into being more tentative about taking a third. So again, you might be able to kill some Lynx for free, and that's totally normal. The Queens may be out of position a little bit, as you can see right there. So the Reaper's coming back up in here, seeing what they can get. Even a couple of drone kills is pretty good for this, but again, the whole idea is just to deter the third base. And you can see that if you didn't have Reapers over there, if you just had Marines or something, there'd be nothing stopping you from doing that. And now the drone's trying to come down and take the third, and the Reapers are like, nope. So they did exactly what they're supposed to do so far. So we'll fast forward a little bit, starting the Hellions like we saw in the last game. And again, the follow-up pressure here, Reaper Hellion, can work quite well. You'll notice that there's basically no creep tumors being pushed out because the Reapers are here for one, and secondarily, actually that's the main reason. I don't know why there was a secondarily to that, but stopping the creep is going to make it so that connecting up to your third is going to be a lot harder. And especially Cloak Banshee transitions are going to be really strong behind that. That's not what this Terran does, but that is another option. So coming up here, he knows all about the third now. He can try to get some damage on it just in case a later push might be able to kill it. But you can see, look how slow these Queens are on creep. If he were to have maybe a whole bunch of extra Hellions or something waiting out on the map, he could just walk right in there, there'd be nothing stopping him, and it would be a drone massacre. Now there's a lot of Hellions. Sometimes you can't afford to just start fighting these things, but again, just killing tumors, seeing what you can get against the Zerglings is really good. And he really hasn't lost anything here, so if you can do that and keep up on making SCVs and keep up making your build, you're going to be in really good shape. So we'll fast forward just a little bit here. Spire coming down once again for the Zerg, which is really, really normal. I mean, the only thing I really have to say about the Spire is just make sure you know that the timings of it are basically the fastest mutas you're going to see on the field on 3 bases is about 11 minutes. So just be prepared with turrets and stim or whatever else you want to deal with those. Mines, Thors are acceptable. But yeah, just know the timings for that. So coming back in here, still the Reapers and Hellions are doing just fine. Just lost a Hellion there, but no big deal. They've basically done their job by now, just slowing the Zerg down. And like I said before, don't focus as much as far as what these things do tangibly, because tangibly they really haven't killed many drones. Only killed 2. They've killed a bunch of Zerglings, but more importantly, if they weren't here and you were just sitting at home making Marines and maybe tanks or something, the Zerg could just take a free third and do whatever they want, and you don't want to do that. So Terran now taking a third as well, since he did have that earlier third command center. Muta's on the way. Terran is also getting the 1-1 on his bio, and again, double upgrades. There's really no reason not to do double upgrades in this matchup. I would dare say that against most players, you would just be straight up behind against without double upgrades on your Marines or mech or whatever you're running. So like we were talking about, Marine Mine is going to be the main crux of this composition. He does have turrets and even a bunker in place over here just to stop run-bys and stuff against the mutas. So mutas shouldn't really do anything, and the whole idea is that you want to keep this under control with constant aggression, keep the mutas on his side of the map with constant aggression or with multi-prong drops, and then they won't get in your base and wreck stuff up. So, not too much going on here, just trying to chase down the Overseer. I don't want to type that. I'm trying to hit plus. So, first little push out coming out, and again, like we talked about before, first 2 medevacs are out, go see what you can get with them. Don't just sit at home and wait. Just try to get out there and see what you can do with these first 2 medevacs. Sometimes you'll end the game if you control well enough or he really messes up. It's just, again, this matchup is so standard and everyone knows it so well that if you ever get somebody trying to be cute and play different and you just do the standard stuff, you'll probably kill them a lot with these little move outs if you control properly. So Baneling's rolling in here, Baneling speed is done, trying to attack on creep, and this hasn't been a very successful attack so far because we usually say the longer you're on creep, the better the attack is going for you if you're Terran. And he just got pushed off right away. He's still doing okay, but the next round is going to force him to probably pick up these medevacs. So he just flies back home. Even triple upgrades coming out for this Terran because he wants the extra durability on his mines so they don't die as fast when they're being attacked. And the funny thing is that if you ever get the Overseer from the army, as you saw, remember down here, he actually chased the Overseer down and killed it. Now there's no Overseer here, and all of a sudden these mines have reloaded and he has no idea. So these mines may prove to be a lot more useful than you'd think if you can kill the Overseer. So we should see something pretty cool here in just a second, killing like 3 or 4 Banelings just for 1 mine. Actually really good. So now the drops are going to start commencing, so he's going to pull 2 down here. He's going to pull 1 the other way, and the idea here is that if you can show 1, and just drop it off. You can even see, look at his rally points. He's actually rallied it all the way around the map, and he's just going to drop right there once it gets there. But if you can just pull him apart like this and force him to be in two places at once, a lot of times they'll have trouble dealing with this, and he's even pushing up a third prong right now. And you know, this doesn't take a ton of attention if you just rally all these the way that they're supposed to go. I mean, you can see even these ones have the rallies straight into where they want to drop. That's actually not a very good drop location, but whatever. But you can also move out the rest of your army and try to see what you can get out on the map just to distract him or even pull him away from his bases even further. And again, you have medevacs, there's no mutas here. If you get attacked like this army is going to be wasted. Just pick up in your medevac and get out of there. Which we should see in just a sec. There we go. A few Marines die, no big deal. So the drops are starting to come out, and the mutas actually got a whiff of this drop, so they're trying to figure out where it went. But save your boost just in case you need it for a situation like this. And if you have to drop them off because there's mutas chasing, you can hit the unload button here and click on your medevacs, and as they fly, they'll continue to unload streams of Marines. So rather than losing both of these medevacs for free, you may get a few mutas, you may get a couple of banelings or something cool like that. You can actually see he did get 2 mutas for that drop, which is a lot better than 0. But because of that, again, second drop is now active in the other base. He did kill a handful of Zerglings, or rather a handful of drones. Might even get mutas if he targets. Yeah, he just got one right there. And then again, here's another drop, just canceling this base over here. May even kill it if the guy's not paying attention. But I think it will, yeah, it'll cancel. And again, behind this, you need to make sure you have good mechanics so that you can keep all these barracks active while you're out on the map. So every once in a while, just hit your barracks hotkey. This guy has it on too. That's what I put it on as well. Just hit your barracks hotkey and just spam out the Marines if that's going to be your strategy. Keep the mines up, and then you can just keep doing this over and over and over. And as long as you get good trades and you make good decisions, you should, get into a good spot. So again, the muta's trying to come up here, see what they can do. Sorry for the notification there. But yeah, all he's trying to do now is just, again, try and pull him out of position here, because this is not his whole army. The rest of his army is over here. Just trying to get as good of engagements as possible. And wow, those are ridiculously good mine hits. And we should probably talk about that a little bit. Let me actually just go back. That's probably not worth it. But the idea here with the mine and Marine composition is that you want to kind of lead out with your Marines, burrow your mines, and then stim your Marines and run them away so that the opponent has to attack over the mines while they chase your Marines down. And then you can start pursuing with the Marines again. And that's what we saw there. You can go back in the video and watch it again if you want to. I know my observing isn't the most amazing right now, but that's what happened nevertheless. But again, look how far out on the map the army is, and now all of a sudden he can drop in 2 places at once if he wants to. Just get in there and kill drones, because it's going to take the army a long time to report to that. So first prong of the drop is coming down, second prong of the drop is being boosted in right now. All he wants to do is just move these around, and eventually one of these drops is going to start getting out of control. So you can see he's actually killing a lot of drones here. Drones weren't pulled, and it's okay to lose those Marines because they kind of did their job of moving the Zerg around and getting the drops off and getting seeing what you can get done. 3-3 on the way. 3-3 Marines are really, really good, so you do want to get those upgrades spending as fast as possible, so keep up on that. And I know I'm telling you to do like 10 things at once, but really the idea of StarCraft, especially playing Terran, is that if you can do these 10 things at once and keep up on it, there's really not much separating you from the rest of the players that are, playing at high levels and even at your level. 1 second while I take care of something. Getting calls once again, as I tend to be a fairly popular person while I'm making YouTube videos, but the muta's just being pushed away. Nothing terribly exciting going on right now. Another drop is moving out, so you can see it moving out on the medevac, or rather out on the map. Taking a little bit of damage from the run by here, nothing too crazy. Muta's trying to poke back in to see what they can get done, and if you're having a lot of trouble with these harasses, just make tons of turrets, even burrow a couple of mines somewhere and see what you can do. But at this point, he has enough at home to deal with the mutas, and now the second stage of the attack is coming. He's wasting a lot of banelings trying to kill not too many Marines. He did still get decent mine hits, and all of a sudden the mutas have to rally back over. You might catch him every once in a while, but still, behind all this, another drop is going off. This is a medevac that we saw earlier. And I'm sure even people watching might have forgotten about it because it was still out on the map doing damage while we were focusing on other things. So yeah, I mean, we could just beat this to death and just keep going over the same things over and over, but the whole idea is just that if you control, if you don't pick too many fights with your Marines, and you just continually drop over and over and over, you're going to eventually start getting good trades. Unless the guy you're playing is just really, really good. And look at these amazing trades against the Mutalisks. Just forcing him to mess up a lot. He's now up by about 50 supply. This game's about to end in a couple minutes once he pushes, so we'll just go ahead and move on to the next one. And finally, for the third replay, I'm going to show you guys a replay from HTO Mario, who's a really famous streamer. He actually streams exclusively mech. So we're going to see some really cool mech play out of him and kind of make a demonstration as far as what you can get done with mech as opposed to these Marine strategies. And my Starcraft is freaking out while it loads, but yeah. So jumping into this game, Mario is the Terran over here. And mech tends to be a lot slower. You're going to have to do a lot less different things on the map at a time. With mech, you're generally going to try and build up to one big fight, but you can do cute things with Hellions and Hellbats and stuff like that, which is something that Mario does a lot. Even with mines, there's really kind of the word I want to use here is a smorgasbord of different things you can use with mech, especially now that the upgrades have been combined with the starport units. So what we're going to see here is a little bit of a different opener, though. I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a different taste. This is what's known as a Maka Rax in StarCraft. Maka Prime used to hide his barracks in his natural all the time and kind of rally forward more Marines than his opponent would be expecting. So that's what he's going to do. He's going to drop a bunker down here just to be annoying. So we'll kind of see that develop. You can copy stuff like this if you want to, but just be aware that these aren't terribly reliable plays. If they work, they work well. If they don't work, they look kind of bad. But either way, the transition behind this is that he's not going to mine gas for a long time, so he's not going to have a lot of mid-game presence with Reapers and Hellions and stuff like that. But what he is going to have is 3 really quick command centers. So basically, once this push gets, one or two bunkers filled up, you're going to drop 2 command centers behind it so that you can get into a really big macro position really fast. So all he's doing here is just loading up his bunkers, trying to keep enough SCVs forward so he can repair. And it's going to be really expensive for any Zerg to break this. You can even see that just because he was able to repair for so long. He even loaded his SCV in the bunker. That was pretty cute. But because he was able to repair for so long, this is actually going to get the hatchery and put him in a really good position. So now he has basically a free expansion. He can start his 3rd command center whenever he wants. These Marines have already done their job. It doesn't even matter if they die. And they will eventually die. I mean, you can try and run them away, but there's not really much of a point by now. He probably could have actually just ran them away right there. Maybe got better trades, but it's not a big deal. 3rd command center coming up, as we can see. This used to be really popular, especially back in Wings of Liberty. You don't see it as much anymore. It's probably the reason why he did that. But you can mix up your openers if you're especially playing against the same player over and over. And all he's doing behind this is he's just thinking, well, I just did a lot of damage with my opener. I canceled your hatchery. The chance of you all-inning is pretty high. So I might as well just start extra bunkers and defend against that. But then he realizes, by some means, I'm not sure how he knows, but he just pushes back out of the map, knowing that the Zerg actually expanded as an all-inning. I'm really not sure what he saw there. Maybe he's just guessing, but yeah, a little strange. So the Marine's just trying to trade as best he can here. And behind this, you do want to get your gases up as soon as possible, especially if you want to switch into mech. So get them mining right away, get your factory started, at least one, so you can start getting some semblance of mech on the field. But in this case, there's not really any reason to go Hellions at this point, because there's no real reason to continue to try and deny a 3rd. The only thing you're going to really do from this point is just try to get as many tanks up as possible so that you can start making these big, strong death pushes. And we'll see that develop here. 5 factories being built at a time. That's just craziness. 3rd command center should be landed here pretty soon. The 2 scouting barracks are kind of funny because they will get you all the information that you need so you can tell what time everything is being put up, and that's actually kind of common with mech. So if you need a long-term scout and you don't want to burn scans, just send out your barracks and let it fly around and kind of die. The only thing that will limit you is building more factories, but I mean, you already have 5, and if you need to build another barracks to make more factories, it's not like that's really a big investment by that point in the game. So just trying to figure out what's going on. He notices that the gases are just now coming up at both sides. So you can see he's barely mined anything from here. So he knows that the tech is just really elementary for the Zerg right now. and the barracks are giving a lot of information, so that's what he wants to do. Behind this, double armory. Again, no reason not to do double upgrades. You might as well. He is being kind of greedy, taking a 4th here, but he is starting up his tanks, starting up a lot of Hellbats here, and that's most of the composition that you're going to see when you run mech. You may start to mix in mines, Thors occasionally, but the basis of it is just tanks and having really good position, and then having some sort of buffer unit in between, whether that's Hellbats. Sometimes you can actually buffer okay with Thors, but you just often won't have enough gas to make that work. But yeah, so we'll just see this develop. I'll just fast forward it a little bit since there's not much else to talk about. The upgrades that he's getting right now are just the transformation servos for the Hellions and Hellbats, as well as the drilling claws. Typically with mech, you're going to get basically every upgrade there is to get. Especially these little building upgrades are going to be pretty important. The building armor and the high-sec auto tracking for your turrets. Just because your army is going to be super immobile, you need to be able to defend yourself pretty much every turn. So there's a ton of turrets here, as you can see, just to prevent like mass mutafly-ins, or at least punish them pretty hard for trying stuff like that. And then secondarily, sensor towers are going to be the next stage to just getting information and making sure your mech is always in the right spot. This is kind of weird. I don't know what the deal is with this tech lab. Maybe so we can lift this barracks off and save it and still block that 3rd base. Or I guess that would be the 5th base, my bad. But yeah, not a whole lot going on here, and this is going to be what's going to happen in a lot of mech games. So I would say if you're a lower APM player, especially if you have troubles you know, controlling Marines or whatever, run mech, because a lot of the game is actually just you sitting back and building up a big army until you feel comfortable enough to push. We'll go over the engagement here in just a second, but most importantly, you want to get as optimal position as possible with this mech. So if you look out on the map, right now, if he sieges up right here, this base is dead. So that'll put him on 4 bases worth of mining to 3. I'm trying to deal with a little bit of a run by here, but it shouldn't be too bad of a deal. So if he kills this base, and that's the whole point of this position, which he should be able to easily, because anything will have to cross his path in order to deal with that army. And there's a ton of choke points right here that really helps mech out. Just try to get a good position so that you can kill a base, or at least force him to engage at an angle that he doesn't really like. But as far as the exact control with this army, the Hellbats are really just going to be to buffer. They're not going to do a lot of damage, and the whole idea is just to let them, you know, die and deal out a little bit of damage, and most importantly take damage, while the tanks get as many shots off as possible. So you can see as soon as the roaches start to pull back out of tank range, just move your army back. As soon as they attack the tanks, move your Hellbats back. It's kind of a little bit of a ebb and flow with this army composition, just to assure that the tanks do as much damage as possible. Being a little bit sloppy here with the Hellbats is kind of unfortunate, but he did accomplish his goal of killing that base, so I guess it's not all done. The other side of this is that the medevacs will really help your Hellbats as well. And you can see, even though it seems like this army's about to get overrun, the tanks are just so resilient, and the Hellbats taking all this damage that is being killed by the medevac is a big deal. So these tanks, despite an entire army being, you know, thrown at them, they're still alive. So this mech is doing really, really well. The other thing I really want to highlight with mech is that if you're aggressive with it, you can take a lot of bases, especially if you have building armor and high-sec auto tracking. You can take a lot of planetaries, you can put down a lot of turrets, but also you can put down these excess command centers if you have a lot of money floating, just so you can dump SCVs and get a bigger army and just use mules to mine instead. So even though he lost some workers here, not actually sure how many he lost, it looks like, what, 10? It's always such a confusing screen. Even though he lost some workers over here, it's okay because he can just replace that mining with mules anyway. In the meantime, a little bit of a drop going on, not too much happening, but the tanks are still here, and the tanks still being on creep this entire time means that the Zerg just hasn't had enough to deal with those. So you can start multi-pronging with drops here and there with Hellbats and stuff, or you can try and just leapfrog your tanks forward. So if you have a tank here and a tank there, their range extends out to about here, so that means you could probably move a tank there and there or something, whoops, and here or something, so that you can start to leapfrog them and kind of continue to gain position while not being too unprotected against mech. Look at all these command centers coming down as well. This is really a good example of how to run this. So we'll fast forward just a bit. Again, having a really hard time removing these. You do want to watch out for these Vipers in the sense that Lightning Cloud and the poles on them will be pretty strong, but again, medevac's still being useful because you can still just pick up and get out of there if you're ever being overrun. So he's just repositioning his army here, letting the Hellbats take the damage, and if he gets in trouble again, he can't just pick back up the medevacs. So pretty good control there. Now behind this, like I was talking about before, the starport units and the mech units share upgrades now in Heart of the Swarm. So battlecruiser transitions with 3-3 is going to be unbelievably strong, considering just for the Zerg to get 3-3 on any type of unit, they will need a Hive. And Hive takes a really long time to get to. It's pretty uncomfortable as Zerg, especially if you're having to deal with constant aggression from a Terran opponent. So the battlecruisers at 3-3 with the support on the ground of tanks, I just really don't even know how a Roach Hydra army is supposed to win that fight. They will need a lot of corruptors, and by which point you can start supplementing your army with Ravens and start landing Seeker missiles and use point defense drone. It's a really fun way to get into the late game in this matchup, and to be honest, Zerg's really needed, which of course is our goal, right? So just trying to build up the army to the point where he's comfortable. And if you're ever building battlecruisers, you really don't want to start moving out on the map without them. Just wait till the current production cycle finishes before you go. And of course, if you're max, there's no reason not to go. Something really cute he's going to do is he's going to realize that I want more battlecruisers, and I'm just going to dump supply and see what I can get with these tanks. But these 3-3 tanks, look at how incredibly fast they kill all the tech structures in the base for Zerg. In the meantime, Hellbat run by, or I guess walk by, destroying the hatchery down there. So look at how much he's doing with this little drop. And because the map is big and because you have really fast medevacs, you can get a lot of this stuff done. Even saves a lot of the tanks. Well, they get pulled back, but there's no Hydras here, so that didn't really do much. But yeah, so again, we were talking about not as much multi-pronging as before, but still, you can do it if you have medevacs. Even if you need to dump supply to get more battlecruisers or more Ravens or something, that's totally fine. Oh, that's getting kind of tracked down here, so we can see another battlecruiser on the way. And Zerg actually making 3 Spires. Whoops, probably don't want to make 3. But nevertheless, he's doing so. He knows that the battlecruisers are on the field now because he can see them with his creep. And at that point, again, once you get into this deep of a late game, Ravens are really, really strong, and they'll supplement your battlecruisers perfectly, considering the best option to deal with those is corruptors. So by now, 3-3 battlecruisers bearing down on Hydralisks, that's really scary. He actually doesn't even need to siege his tanks here, he doesn't really care. So just microing as best as he possibly can away from these blinding clouds. But yeah, this is a terrifying army barreling down on the Zerg. Again, no reason to even siege the tanks. And especially in these later battles, it's one thing I also want to really highlight. Especially in these later battles, bring SCVs along and just set them to auto-repair so they can repair your army while it's out. So your army will last longer out on the field. And here's the main fight. Should be basically the final fight, considering the Terran just has a way better composition. You get blinding clouds there, but even still, he keeps his tanks out of siege mode so that he can still fight and move his army around. Yeah, there's just no chance the Zerg wins this. And as we can see, the game ends here in just about 30 seconds. So that's pretty much the final push. We'll just switch back into the other screen here so that we can give a little outro here. I'll explain all my formalities I'm sure you don't care about, but yeah, some interesting TvZ strategies there. I hope you guys learned a fair amount from that. If you have any questions, always post in the comments and I will get to them if I see them. Of course, I do have a lot of other stuff going on, so sometimes I will miss them and I apologize, but I'll be making more videos. TVT is next, so check it out.